I was born into a household. My parents were both alcoholics when I was younger. There was 4 siblings, myself, Joy, Rita, and Tracy. Life in the household was, I used to look at other families and wonder why my household was so different, why there wasn't the affection I saw other siblings receiving from, their parents. My parents, like I said, were both alcoholics. So it was very, very chaotic in the house. There was always shouting and screaming going on. I never saw my dad hit my mum, but we would hear it because we would be sent to our rooms. So that was life for the first 6 years of my life. And then an incident happened. My mum in this would go missing for weeks on end. She would go on a binge and she would leave us just with my dad. And my eldest sister, Tracy, would be the one that would be like taking on the mum role and caring for us. And in this time period, one time when my mum wasn't there, my dad actually abused my eldest sister, Tracy. And that didn't come out for a while. And then we were having Sunday lunch at my grandma's house one weekend, and Tracy confided in my grandma what had happened. So it all came out, and we were taken into the local authorities, taken away out the family home. My dad was taken away. My mum was still drinking alcohol. They told us the night we were taken in that you're just going to be here for a few days. We were young. We didn't know what was happening. We were all kept together at one point. And they said you'd just be here for a few days. We ended up staying there for close to 5 years because my mum, she would either not come to the meetings to get us back, like we'd have social services meetings to see how my mum was doing, how things were progressing for her. And for a long time, she just continued to drink and drink and drink, or she wouldn't either come to the meetings or she would come and she'd be drunk and she'd be turned away. So we ended up staying there for close to 5 years. And those 5 years being in care, Again, I felt very alone. I felt very lost. You would see other parents coming on weekend visits to be with their kids, and, my mum would never turn up. Or she'd turn up and she'd be drunk, and she would be turned away. So it was at a young age, I felt very abandoned, very alone. And you used to think to yourself, if your mum doesn't love you, then who else is going to love you? So that really from a very young age, sowed a seed of me that nobody wanted me, and in the care homes, you were just another child that needed to be clothed and fed and taken to school. And I would run off many times when I was there because I'd try and go looking for my mum. I was only a very young age, and I'd be brought back, and, my discipline was that I'd be putting my pajamas for a week after school. They'd take my clothes away from me, so I wouldn't be able to run off and go and try and find my mum. So I did that a few times, and then when I was age 11, I went back home because mum had got remarried. She got herself clean and sober, and family life was okay for a good few years. Mum was mum. We would have birthdays. We would celebrate Christmases. She was married to a lovely guy. But then mum didn't want to be mum anymore. She wanted to go back to kind of being young and doing the party scene again. So she started to drink again. And for me, only 2 of us went home. Me and Joy went home. Tracy and Rita, they didn't go home. They were my other 3 siblings. So Tracy and Rita, they went into a housing association because they were old enough. They didn't want to come home. They were helped to get their own houses and learn how to look after their own money and cook and clean. And me and Joy's a year older than me. So we went home to be with Mum. Joy went home first, and then I went home after. And like I say, Mum was okay for a few years. We'd have Christmases, celebrate birthdays, something which was really abnormal to me because we'd never done that in our lives. You know, the only things I'd ever celebrated like that was in a big community of the care home where you would just have minimal presents, you know, and again, it was just never family orientated. My heart was, I always wanted to feel like I belonged somewhere, you know, a part of a family, and I never felt that in my own home. My sister Joy, I always knew I was different to my sister Joy. You know, my dad would tell me that he would have to say to my mum, there was only 11 months between us, there wasn't even a year. He would have to say to my mum, can you put Joy down and pick him up? You know, and I think it was because my mum basically hated my dad, but my dad was very close to me because I was the youngest. So we had this special bond, and I think because we had this special bond, me and my dad, my mum resented me because she resented my dad. So growing up, I always knew that there was a difference between me and Joy, my sister. My mum always favorited her. And I remember one night she was drunk, and people say people speak the truth when they're drunk. And I remember lying in bed with her, and she said to me, she said, Kim, you know I'll always love you, don't you? I said, yeah, of course I do. I know you love me, Mum. She says, but I'll always love Joy a little bit more. And that absolutely broke me. You know, it just confirmed everything that I'd felt all those years of feeling lost and abandoned and not cared for. So Mum was Mum, like I said, for a good few years, and then she started to drink again and go off the rails and didn't want to be married anymore. So I was kind of started to feel so scared and so insecure of what I was seeing again, that it was going to go back to the way it used to be, that I started to drink myself. I got in with the wrong crowd at school. I'd be sniffing gas. I'd be taking weed, anything to blank the reality of what was going on at home with Mum. You know, I didn't have to face in my own heart and my own emotions the abandonment that I felt when I was younger, again with my mum. So that was life for me. So from when 13 years old until I was about 16, I was drinking, I was smoking, I was taking pot. And then in this time, I got involved with a boy. His name was Paul. And it was the first time I thought that somebody loved me. He showed me this affection. We did everything together, basically. He was like my soulmate, I thought. And then we'd been dating about 3 years, and he told me one night that he didn't want to be with me anymore. And I asked him why. My heart was broken, you know, and he said because of all the weight I'd put on. Because I put a lot of weight on from drinking and taking part. And he said, but if you lose the weight, I'll have you back. So me being me, I so wanted to keep hold of that relationship. I felt safe, secure, that somebody loved me. So I went looking for a drug that could help me lose the weight. And I got hold of a drug called amphetamines. And instead of ingesting it through my mouth, I got somebody to put it in a syringe and put it in my arm straight away, because I was so desperate to lose all the weight that I had gained. And I did lose all the weight. I was taking amphetamines for a good year, and I became very emaciated. Paul, he didn't actually have me back. He actually slashed me from the top of my neck to the bottom of my shoulder with a Stanley blade. They said if I would have turned my neck, I would have had my jugular and I would have been dead. So he never took me back. And by this time, I was so addicted to amphetamines that I needed another drug to help me to come down from that drug. And my sister Joy, she was involved in a different circle of friends. She was a year older than me, and her friends were taking heroin. And she said to me, I can give you something that's going to help you go to sleep and give you the rest that you need. And she gave it me, and it did everything that I wanted it to do. It numbed my emotions, it numbed my feelings, it made me be a person that I would never be, you know, without taking it. So I started to take that when I was 19, and from when I was 19 until I was 29, well, nearly the end of my 29th birthday before I entered Betel, my life just took a massive downward spiral for the next 11 years. I did everything I said I wouldn't do. I became a prostitute on many of the streets of the UK. I worked in brothels. I stole from anybody that would allow me in their house. I became a prolific shoplifter. I have a lifetime ban from every supermarket, but I can go in them now because I'm not the person that I used to be. So that was my life, and I was constantly in and out of prison for that 10 years. And in those 10 years, me, Rita and Joy, all three of us got on drugs. Rita passed away before I entered Betel, and Joy passed away about 4 years ago while I was in Betel. They both died of heroin overdoses. So that was my life for 11 years. I didn't know how to get out of it. Everybody around me I saw was just dying. Going into prison for me was a place where I felt secure. I knew everybody there. The prison officers would say to me, "Kim, we'll see you in 3 months." And I'd say, "No, not this time." And bet your bottom dollar, within 3 months' time, I'd be there, residing in one of their beds again, and I'd get clean. It would be like a respite, and then I would pick up my old life again and go out, because I didn't know any other way to live. Nobody ever told me, "Kim, you can be completely free from heroin." The only thing I ever saw was everybody around me dying, even people in my own family dying. I didn't see any hope. Counsellors would tell me, "Kim, the best thing you could hope for in your life is to get on a methadone script and stay on that. That's going to keep you stable. That's going to be your crutch through life, and you will be able to live a life if you live like that." Nobody ever told me, "Kim, you can get completely free and be free from drugs." I was always told you're going to need either medication or support the rest of your life for how long you've been in addiction. So that was my life pre-coming to where I am now. Well, my first experience of going to church would be when we were in care homes. They used to take us to church every Sunday in the care homes. But for me, it wasn't a place of comfort or warmth. It was stiff wooden pews that we would sit on. We would be at the back of the church as Heron Cross Homes, that's where we sat as kids. But it was just a cold atmosphere. It was just hard benches. It wasn't something that I was drawn into. We would be released to go into Sunday school after, which was a lot more warmth and things. But the church setting itself was never, I didn't feel like it wasn't warmth, or it wasn't homely, or it wasn't inviting. It was just really cold and stark. And I think then growing up and in my addiction, the only time I ever went to a church service was when I was in prison, because they would let you out your cells. It would be an opportunity to go and meet your friends in the chapel, exchange notes, maybe get a cigarette, but you would have to listen to the service, and I did at times think to myself, if there's a God, or if Jesus is real, then why is my life the way it is? If you're telling me that this Jesus loves me and died for me, then why is it that I've led the life? Why is it that I felt the way I have? Why is it that I felt so lost and abandoned? And I could say now, God works everything through good, and I can see different markers along the way. Let me give you an instance. I remember coming out of a counselling session once, and I can remember just a few things you can remember clear as day. And I remember walking across the car park, because the counsellor was sitting there talking to me, and she was telling me, "Kim, I know how you feel." And I got really annoyed with her. I said, "You don't know how I feel. I am going back to work the streets right now and try and find somewhere to sleep tonight. You don't know how I feel. You're going to get in your big car and most probably drive home. And I remember leaving there and speaking to myself and saying, if I ever get clean from drugs, I'm going to help people just like me. And that was just a fleeting thought, and the reality of it is now I do that exact thing. I remember being sent to Birmingham. I'd committed a shoplifting offence. I was in court. They released me from court. Before I got on the train, I went shoplifting in another supermarket and I got caught. And I was put right back before the courts again. I should have been remanded into custody. But by the grace of God, I was sent to a hostel in Birmingham. That's never unheard. With my record, I shouldn't have been given bail to come back to Birmingham. So you see little things. I see little things of, wow, God, you were there all along. I didn't recognize it. I didn't know it at the time. But looking back now, I can see those little things. I always said when the courts would send me all around the country, they would just wanted me out of my own town. They were fed up with me. They didn't know what to do with me. So they sent me to Manchester. They would send me to Liverpool. I was sent to a bail hostel in Birmingham where I was waiting pre-sentence reports to be sentenced to for the shoplifting charges that I'd done. So I was residents in a bail hostel again. I got on with the wrong lot of people. And I was living in a bedsit and I was with a group of guys one day and we were shoplifting up Birmingham town centre. We had no food, we had no clean clothes, and they said to me, I know a soup kitchen that we can go to where we can get some food. We've got our drugs, we could get some food, we could get some clean clothes, and then we could take it back to mine. And it was Betel's soup kitchen in the city centre. So I was waiting outside there. They came and I went in, we got the clothes, I got something to eat, and I sat talking to a group of women on the table that were actually residents in Betel at that time. And they were telling me how they weren't taking drugs anymore, and they were smiling and they were happy. And they told me that they were just like me. And I was thinking to myself, I'd never seen this. I'd never seen somebody be smiling, never seen somebody be happy without being on a methadone script or having some kind of crutch. And these people were telling me this was possible for me. But I was with a group of guys at the time, and I didn't want them to think that I was paying any attention to these crazy Christian people that were telling me that Jesus could redeem me and change my life. So I took the flyer, popped it in my pocket, didn't think anything of it. A week later, I got myself into a situation where I'd stolen somebody's pub takings. I'd gone back to my hostel. I'd spent all these pub takings on crack and heroin with the people that were there. I woke up 2 o'clock the next day and I thought to myself, this guy is going to come looking for me and I'm going to be dead. Everybody knew who I was. Everybody knew where I lived, so I would be easy to find. I turned to the side of my bed, I saw the Betel flyer, and I remember them saying to me, if you call and have an interview, we have spaces, you can come in. I took that flyer, I ran down to the telephone box at the bottom of my road, I called, I had an interview at 2 o'clock, and they said, when do you need to come in? I said, I want to come in today. By 4 o'clock, I was in, I ransacked my bedsit, got a few bags of clothes, took it with me, and made my way to Betel. And I came with the expectation that I was going to stay for 2 weeks. I was going to get clean from drugs. People would stop looking for me, thinking I'd left the town, and then I would go and resume whatever life I could make for myself. And 19 years later, I'm still here. I came in through the Betel doors. It was a atmosphere that I'd not experienced. It's not like a clinical rehab. Betel's empathy is to reparent people and create a family home for people. And that's something that I'd always wanted. So when I came in, I was accepted for the way that I was. I was accepted into this family, something that I'd longed for most of my life. I didn't understand what was going on. I didn't understand all these people singing worship songs in the morning and stuff, but I wanted what they had. You know, if something had set them free, then I wanted it for myself. And I was here about maybe 6 months, and then an American team came over. It's called the WUSH team. They come over and they pray for people individually for 15 minutes. And I thought to myself, I've been here 6 months, didn't know Jesus, was exposed to the gospel every day, and I thought, what the heck? What's wrong with letting these people pray for me? It can't harm me. And I went in that prayer session, and it was like they didn't know me, but they knew me. They were telling me all the stuff that, that God had put me in the family that I'd always wanted, and he was going to give me my own family. And I left that prayer meeting thinking, how do these people know my heart? I actually thought Kent and Mary Alice had spoken to them about me. It was like they knew my heart, they knew what I was thinking, they knew my longings, my desires. And I left that place thinking, wow, these people don't know me. And they're telling me that Jesus knows these things about me. And that's what set me on a journey for finding my own faith and finding out who Jesus was, because they knew me, they didn't know me. It's like they knew my thoughts, they knew my innermost desires. And it was like, wow, there's something in this. And that set me on a journey to finding Jesus myself. And like I said, 19 years later, it's been a process, it's been a journey. The most amazing journey. 3 years ago, I sat down with William and Kate, the future King and Queen of England, telling them my story of how Christ had changed my life, how Jesus had changed my life. And I think back to 19 years ago, I'm a woman on the street, sitting in prison, and now I'm sitting having tea and coffee with the future Queen and King of England. That is the power of our Jesus. That's the power of the gospel. That's the power that's not just given me a new life, it's completely transformed me. And just over a month ago, me and my husband were actually ordained as pastors in the ministry. So I look at my life 19 years on, and it's like I pinch myself sometimes, because did I ever think I'd be in the place I'd be in now? No. I live an exceptional, abundant life that I didn't think was possible. I didn't. I thought I'd be dead. If I hadn't come into Betel, I most probably would have been dead. But today, I live a purposeful life. I oversee all the women's work in Birmingham. It's so inspiring when girls come in and they say, you've been in the same place as me? You're not a missionary? And I'm like, no, I was in the exact same place as you. I'm just a little bit further down the road, and this could happen for you too. And then I'd been in Betel maybe 15 years, and my mum had never been to see me. We would talk on the phone, she'd see a change in me. And then she came to stay with me 3 weeks before she passed away, actually. And she came, and it was Mother's Day weekend, and we had a great time together. And she actually said to me, she said, I'm so proud of you. It was the first time she told me that she loved me, and she was so proud of me. And then 3 weeks later, she actually fell down the stairs, and her skull was crushed, and she died. But it was just such a God thing that I'd spent the weekend with her 3 weeks before, and just to hear her tell me that she was so proud of me and that she loved me. It was like, it was a healing. It was a complete healing and a restore of me, because then 3 weeks later, she was gone. But we had that time, just that special weekend where I felt there was a deep healing within me, and she told me those words that I'd longed to hear all my life. my life, the change in me, I know that it's not me that's brought the change about. It's not just the exterior of me that's changed. If you see a picture of me before, I know that my heart has been renewed. I know the way that I think, I know the way that I act has completely changed. And that's nothing to do with me trying or willpower. It's the power of Christ, of Jesus, that I've let into my heart, that I've willing to, allow him to transform me. Jesus is real. I've experienced that in my life, and I can't give that to anybody. That's got to be your own journey. But don't close your heart off to it. Be willing to be open to something new. Because it is real. If you say to Jesus, take my life, I want to build a relationship with you, and allow him in, be open that he will come in and start transforming you. He will come in and make himself real to you. He will do that personally for you. It won't be the same as me. It'll be your journey, but he will reveal himself to you.
You're married.
Yes.
Your own life now. You've got a couple of...
I do. I'm married to a great guy called Tim, who is the worship pastor. So he came into Betel. He was a cocaine addict. So he came into Betel 12 years ago, and now we are married. We're pastors together. We work in different arenas. Like, he's the worship pastor. I'm like a pastor over the women's work. We have two beautiful girls, Skylar and Layla. Skylar's 14 and Layla is 11. And we love life. We love serving in the ministry. We love portraying Jesus to people. I love seeing the light go on in people's lives. Even if you just do it for the one, I love going back into the prisons that I used to be in, and telling my story, because it brings hope to the hopeless. It is just amazing. I do things that I thought were like impossible. I live a dream, basically. Something I never thought that I could obtain for my own life. I'm married, beautiful kids, beautiful friend, beautiful family. Most of all, Jesus.